What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this Packers-Browns post-game show. Packers pick up a massive win in their Week 1 preseason game against Cleveland. As I tweeted out, about everything that you would want to go right outside of a potential Marshawn Lloyd, or not a potential, a Marshawn Lloyd hamstring injury, just about everything else went about as good as you could possibly want. I mean, the way that Green Bay started the game, touchdown throw down the right sideline to Dontavian Wicks. One of the big things that I've said is my, biggest takeaway in camp so far has been the Jordan Love deep ball, how much better it looks, how much more consistent with it he has been. It looks night and day different from a year ago, and he's just throwing it with unbelievable confidence. He gets an opportunity on third down and throws an absolute perfect rainbow to Wicks for the touchdown. And then I think everything else, the defense up until the final drive when you've got third and fourth stringers in, they hold the Browns offense to 3 points in the game. I thought they won the turnover battle. They had some pressure up front. Devontae Wyatt, Lucas Van Ness were certainly impressive up front. I thought Sean Clifford had a nice day. I think he ends 10 of 19, but remember, he clocked the ball on one. 2 plays, he just threw the ball over the head of the receiver just to waste time on purpose. So really 10 of 16. And I think 1 or 2 of Bo Melton's drops were, I think, against Clifford as well. So I thought he had a nice day. Emmanuel Wilson has a nice day. Again, I think overall, Evan Williams with a forced fumble, it's about as solid and as good of a first preseason performance as you could possibly want in that sort of situation. You don't want to go overboard and get too overly, excited from it, but that's exactly what you want to see. Green Bay underdogs in that game, by the way. Screw that. They're nobody's underdogs, as Mike McCarthy would say, even in preseason. But yeah, I really, really liked the performance. I thought Josh Jacobs' first run looked good. And, they had the check down on the second play that didn't go anywhere. But again, Love hits on, the third down play to Dontavian Wicks. Grant Dubois, really nice game. Just overall, really impressive performance from Green Bay and a really nice building block to take into week 2 of preseason and obviously on their run to the Super Bowl moving forward. All right, let's get to some questions right away. So first, Richard, thank you so much for becoming a brand new YouTube member. If you haven't checked out those YouTube memberships yet, make sure to do so. Extra content every single week, extra Q&As. If you like this, if you like asking questions and, getting answers to them, you get an extra Q&A if you're a member every single week. So make sure to check those out. And Richard, thanks so much. All right, obviously super chats will go to the top, and I'll try to get to as many member questions as I can, and as many overall questions as we can possibly get to as well. PJ, starting things off, what a rough showing from PJ win. First of all, there's a lot of positives to take away from this game. We don't need to start with a negative, PJ. I'm just giving you a hard time though. Tough performance from him, 3 drops. I think the good news, if you're Bo Melton, is you have a lot of built up positivity in the bank from last year, from what you were able to do in the second half of last year. Really hasn't had a performance or a game like this. I think there's still a lot of upside there for Bo Melton, but yeah, it's just one of those days at the office that doesn't go your way. A couple of those early, completions. Yeah, he should have caught them. He would be the first to tell you he should have caught them, but maybe a little bit behind him. The third one was obviously in a, more egregious drop, but I have no doubt that Melton's going to bounce back. There's also sort of the muffed handoff a little bit. It was tough to tell if that was on the quarterback or if Melton did it wrong. It just kind of looked awkward all the way around. Thankfully, he was able to recover that fumble as well, but yeah, just a tough day for Bo Melton. He'll bounce back. I'm not super concerned about it, but yeah, it is worth noting when Grant Dubois has the day that he has, and Malik Heath is somebody that was on the 53 through the entirety of last year and is a good player with good upside as well. That wide receiver room is stacked, and unless you're the top 4, which are clear and obvious, they're not going anywhere sort of situations. Anyone that's not named Reed, Wicks, Watson, or Dobbs, you have to, make sure that you're not having games like that. And as much as I think that Melton is, clearly going to be on this roster, any sort of situation like that where you're just not having a performance like that, just it raises some question marks and some red flags. And that's obviously not what you want to do. But Melton will bounce back. Like I said, I'm not really concerned about that at all. All right. Todd, can we get that one in? Let's see here. There we go. Todd, thank you so much for the super chat. Super kind of you and really appreciate that. Any initial takeaways from the backup offensive line? Some stand out, positive or negative. I'll probably, and I don't want to punt on a super chat here, Todd, especially the $10 variety. But I definitely want to look at the all 22. That should come out later tonight. I will be going through and grading every player in every game. Yes, even in preseason, and going through my takeaways. So that episode should be up on Monday, kind of going through everything. But I thought just off the top of my head, I thought Caleb Jones at the end of the game. Now, he didn't get in until a little bit later, but he was absolutely moving some people, as John Kuhn was certainly pointing out on the broadcast. I thought Jacob Monk had a couple good blocks. Kadeem Telfort, I thought, started shaky, gave up a couple pressures early, but then in run blocking, he continued to look very good. I think you could kind of see there's the one play where Sean Ryan's getting down the field on a run play as well. So I thought, when you get Emmanuel Wilson going 5.2 yards per carry, Jarvion Howard going 5.5 yards per carry, and overall in the day, the offense went 4.6 yards per carry on 155 yards rushing. You're going to have a pretty good run blocking day. And I thought it started maybe a little bit shaky, but even that first Josh Jacobs one went 7 yards? Yeah, 7 yards. So I thought good day overall from the offensive line. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff to clean up. I thought the pass pro was mostly good. I don't think, did they give up any sacks on the day? They had one sack. It was who? Brady Breeze came up with a sack for Cleveland, and I think that might have been the 0 yard variety, if I remember correctly. But I thought overall good performance by the backup offensive line. Thought Dillard looked pretty decent at left tackle when he was in there. But again, I'll reserve judgment until I get to see all of those guys on the All-22 and see how they performed through the entirety of the game. All right. Celestial Prophet, thank you so much for being a member for 2 months. How did Dylan do? Seemed like Wilson, Howard, and Hicks was better. Let's talk about the Dylan Wilson, Dylan Wilson situation for just a moment. Wilson looked good. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He ended up with 13 for 67, 5.2 yards and a touchdown, including a 23-yard run. Didn't have any of the 80-yard varieties like he did a season ago in preseason, but overall, I thought he had a really nice game. I would be, hesitant to judge too much off of AJ Dillon. And again, I'll look at the All-22 when it comes out, but at first glance, it looked like all of his runs, which again, he was 4 carries for 2 yards. It didn't look like he had much of an opportunity there. And sometimes you're just a victim of circumstance when you're a running back and you have guys immediately surrounding you and you can't really do much with it. And that was my initial impression of Dylan. And for anyone that follows me with any regularity whatsoever, I'm not, a huge, I don't want to say I'm not a Dylan guy or whatever, but it's just not generally my cup of tea. I like big time playmakers more at the playmaking positions. And I think Dylan has a lot of things that he does really, really well, especially pass pro. We saw that unbelievable block in training camp from him this past week against Rashawn Gary. There's some really good things that he brings to this team. But this is one that I would have, again, at least at initial glance, a really difficult time holding too much against him. I just didn't think there was much opportunity there, but in the opportunities given to Emmanuel Wilson, he looked really good. And then, Jarvion Howard, these are sometimes the performances that you get in these preseason games. And we can go back to Herbert Whisper Goodman or Tyler Goodson from a season ago, or really the last couple off seasons. We could go on and on. There is a plethora of, number 3, number 4, number 5 running backs that have had some nice preseason performances over the years and don't really amount to much. Howard was one of the UDFAs that I liked coming out. He is, to me, been pretty clearly the last running back on the depth chart so far, but maybe he elevates himself over Ellis Merriweather this week, and maybe that bumps him up one spot, and maybe that gives him an extra opportunity to make the practice squad. And I think that's what he's fighting for right now, is at the back of the roster, is trying to get one of those 16 practice squad spots, not including Kenneth Odumegwu, who will automatically get one of those as the 17th guy. But nice performance from the running backs. But again, I would not hold too much against Dylan at first glance in this one, just because I didn't think he had a ton of opportunity. All right. Let's see if we can get some more members chats here. Chet Inc., let's go. Defense looked great. Love picking up where he left off, and Wicks is going to be a problem. I think, you love seeing Dontavian Wicks, run that route and, get open easy and then, finish it off for a touchdown. Those are the exact plays that you want to see from the number 1 offense when they get a couple series. I will say very clearly, don't put too much stock into, the big plays in preseason or things like that, or who's going to do well. This is a dress rehearsal more than anything. Defenses are extremely vanilla. Browns are not playing a lot of guys. There's no Myles Garrett. There's no Zadarius Smith. There's a variety of play. I don't think maybe JOK played, but I don't think he did. I think there's a lot of players missing for Cleveland. So take all of it with some level of grain of salt. But that's why I kind of opened with the fact of, hey, this went as well as you could possibly want a preseason game to go. I think there's a lot of positive takeaways. Guys like LVN, Devontae Wyatt, I thought had really nice showings, and you want to see them continue to make progress in the right direction. Dontavian Wicks with the big play, Grant Dubose. There's so much positives, maybe only one injury of note in Marshawn Lloyd. So again, I think there's some really good things here that will help this team moving forward. I think there's some lessons to learn as well. But you don't want to, even in regular season, I will always tell you, don't get too high, don't get too low. In preseason, even more to a greater extent. Definitely a good start though. And I think you like the performance from Jeff Hafley's defense and what you saw overall from the offense. All right, I think we got another super chat here. All right, Tyler, kickers made all the kicks, but Joseph was more down the middle. Carlson was cutting it close. Thoughts? Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's kind of what we've seen so far in training camp as well, although I think they are only 3 made kicks apart from one another. Alex Hale did not get any opportunities, which I thought was a little bit interesting. Like if you're going to carry the third kicker, don't you want to at least give him an opportunity, maybe just even an extra point or something? But right now it does seem to be between Carlson and Joseph. I thought Carlson, as you mentioned, was a little bit close on a couple of those. The last one just barely snuck in by the goalpost. The long field goal was interesting where, man, off his foot, it looked like it was going to go right. But if you did see, the wind was kind of blowing left and he did kind of have a perfect, hook to it. And it ended up pretty much right down the middle. But overall, I would mostly agree with you that I thought Greg Joseph kicked it just a little bit better. Devin Lane, thank you so much for being a member for 8 months. That's freaking awesome. Emmanuel Wilson has me excited out there. Yeah, I think that's again, a fair assessment. What I will say again, and kind of just going back to the Tyler Goodsons and the Herbert Goodmans and all those, running backs that have performed and kind of been preseason darlings in the past. When you're evaluating running backs, right, it's going to sound very weird, but one of the last things that you're kind of looking for is their actual running ability at times, because you're expecting NFL running backs where if things are blocked up well, you're expecting them to get the yardage that is out there. And again, that's not to say that the upper echelon of backs aren't a degree of different and can't provide something special for you, but you're expecting that NFL caliber running backs are going to get some good yards in the running game. What you're looking for and what's really important is what can you give me out of the backfield as a pass catcher and what can you do in pass pro? So I thought this was a really good game running the football for Emmanuel Wilson. I'm not sure how many opportunities he got in pass pro. I don't think, did he have any catches at all? No, I don't think he didn't have any opportunities either to catch the ball. So great start for Emmanuel Wilson. And again, I've been a Emmanuel Wilson guy, kind of going back to last year. I think there is something there. I'm excited about him, but these are usually the type of players we maybe get a little over exuberant about and then end up, going into the season. And just like last year, right? Emmanuel Wilson was phenomenal in the preseason last year. What did he end up with in the regular season? And to be fair, to be, clear on Wilson, he did get a little bit more opportunities at the end of last year. He got 12. If you remember, he got 12 carries in the postseason last year, which is pretty crazy in a 2-game postseason for Green Bay. But he had 14 carries in the regular season, 12 carries in the postseason last year. So a total of 26 carries. To be fair for Wilson, he's at 121 yards in those 26 carries. So that's good. Good average, 31-yard long, 5 catches, 34 yards. So he performed well when he got an opportunity. He did have 1 fumble last year, but I still think there's a little step to go. I would still lean towards that this is probably Dylan, Lloyd, assuming he's healthy and good to go, and Jacobs is your top 3. But Emmanuel Wilson certainly did a really nice job of placing his name even more in that conversation and just saying, hey, do not forget about me. I am in this conversation as well. And I'm not going to make it easy for you guys just to cut me. I deserve to be on this 53-man roster. Celestial Prophet, how do you think Nixon did? If I remember correctly, I did think he gave up 1 bigger completion. I think what you need to remember about Nixon in this game, again, they're probably playing fairly vanilla on the outside and, didn't seem like they were maybe letting them be quite as aggressive in this one. The other thing is he was playing outside corner in this one with Jair being out. That's not his, more natural position. His more natural position is in the slot. I think we did see a little of him in the slot, but this is another one where I'll have to probably go back and look at it a little bit more. So I think his big completion was with him on the outside, if memory serves, but nothing super noteworthy, but it just kind of, and I think even the completion, he was mostly in position to kind of make a play. It was a good play, good throw, good route by the receiver, but we'll kind of take a look at it and see. It's always hard when you've got, again, like 83 players ish playing in this game to kind of keep track of everyone in real time, but didn't see anything super egregious and certainly no big plays from Keyshawn Nixon. I'm just going to throw on this one really quick. 72 is crazy. Yeah, Caleb Jones is a fun player. I still believe, like, I want to see him get those extra offensive lineman snaps as like the sixth offensive lineman. I'm still surprised we've never, ever really seen that, to be honest. Like, it just feels like he's a natural player for that. I do think he has some deficiencies in pass pro. His foot movement skills are going to be an issue from time to time. But like, man, that just let that guy maul from time to time. And it feels like there's got to be at least some way that you can utilize that dude. It like, right? It just feels like it has to be. And, you know, he had a really good performance in the run game in the second half. I remember even going back to minicamp, there were some plays where they put, you know, it's always funny because Kadeem Telfort is a massive dude. And then you put Caleb Jones next to him and Caleb Jones is even bigger and it's crazy. But there were some plays in minicamp where they put Telfort and Jones next to each other, with Jones at left tackle and Kadeem Telfort at left guard. And it was just like, good night. Like, good luck, defenders, going against that on a down by down basis. Those guys can move some people. And I'd like to get, again, maybe Caleb Jones a few snaps in some U Bacon type situations. LVN, a lot of LVN talk here. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about LVN. Do you see a difference in LVN with his hand in the ground versus as a stand-up edge? I don't think it has much to do with hand in the dirt as it just does him taking a step in year two. And he really has had a really nice last about week and a half of practice. You know, we've always been accustomed to seeing LVN have some of these flash plays from time to time, but I think it's just been a lot more consistent in training camp as of late. I think we saw that a little bit in this game as well. Ended up with 3 tackles for a loss, a sack, a quarterback hit, 3 tackles in total. He was just kind of all over the place, and you saw him really flash and again play with consistency. It wasn't easy for the Browns to run at him. And again, he made an impact from a pass rushing standpoint as well. I think this is the big thing that you want to see from him is just a lot more consistency. Do I think maybe it's a little bit easier for him with his hand in the dirt? Maybe. I think that's maybe a true statement, but I think this is just him taking a step in year two, letting the game slow down a little bit more. And he just has a lot more of a pass rush plan than he did a year ago. Last year, it was almost all just raw natural ability. And now he's got some things that are going for him and some moves at his disposal that he's unleashing a little bit more. And I think that's why you're seeing this positive step from LVN in year two. Let's see here. What else we got? James, what a shame for Lloyd. Will you be bringing up the hamstring issues to LaFleur again anytime soon? I don't know if you heard, James, I did bring it up to Matt LaFleur last week. I asked him, I said, because at the time there were 4 hamstring injuries. And I said, you know, I know you brought in some new staff members and you spent a lot of time, you know, trying to figure out the hamstring issues. There's now 4 hamstring issues in camp. I'm like, is this something that's just the cost of doing business, or are you concerned again about the hamstring injuries? And he said, no. He said, you know, just kind of the way that things work in the NFL. If you look around the league, you know, there's a lot of these type of injuries and you just try to mitigate them as much as you possibly can. Now, I think what they released injured one of the players with a hamstring injury, and then Enagbare was the other one, and he's come back since. So going into this game, you only had 2 players with hamstring injuries going into this game. And then Marshawn Lloyd would be the third still remaining on the roster. But you know, the H word has become a bit of a taboo word in Green Bay, where I don't think, you know, fans are too pleased with the hamstrings in general and just want to see. I do believe, and I don't necessarily disagree with Matt, that these sort of things are kind of the cost of doing business in the NFL. These are superhuman athletes that are big, strong, physical, that are running at superhuman speeds and trying to cut on a dime and are giving their bodies a ton of wear and tear. And there's a lot that goes into that. These guys train almost year round, and you're going to have some of these issues happen from time to time, especially as you get back into game shape and start playing. And I do think, like I said, part of it's the cost of doing business. Hopefully it doesn't continue at a super high level, but yeah, you never want to see it. And hopefully Lloyd's not going to be anything long-term here. All right, Andrew, Dubose looks like a better version of Heath. I do think Dubose is off to a really great start, not only in this preseason game, but in training camp as well. He looks night and day different. And it's funny. He came back. If you remember, he was injured at the end, or almost the entirety of camp a season ago. He came back at the end And there was some plays towards the end of camp where he was starting to make where you're like, there's something to work with here. It was interesting because Green Bay almost never cuts their draft picks unless they like absolutely have to. And they cut Dubose. And I think clearly a large part of that was just the fact that he was injured almost all of camp. And then the second thing was they just had so many wide receivers, and Malik Heath had such a good camp that I think they felt like we're going to keep Heath and hopefully we get Dubose back. And thankfully they did get Dubose back. But there were even some flashes towards the end of training camp last year. I was like, oh, there's a little something there. But then he gets the entire healthy offseason. He comes in, OTAs, mini camps, training camp. He looked so much better in camp so far. And I thought that route he ran along the sidelines and then had the 2 feet that he dragged to get in bounds right on the 2-minute drive at right before halftime. Like, to me, that's a big time route and catch from Grant Dubose. And those are the things, because we know he can go up and get it, right? Like that's his size and his ability to kind of go and box out and make some plays. He has that. But his route running chops are, I think, a little bit better than advertised. And he's a good blocker as well. He had a really nice play on an outside play where he blocked, I think it was the wide receiver screen, where he got a nice block in down there as well. He's a pretty complete player already in year 2, despite really not having any experience in the NFL from having to be on the practice squad all of last year. And I do think it's going to be a really interesting battle for that potential number 6 spot. I think it's still between Malik Heath and Grant Dubose. I don't think anyone else after Dubose, and that includes Samori Toure. I don't think anyone Toure or after has any real hope of making the 53, to be honest. And things can change. We'll see what these next 2 preseason games bring, and we'll see what the remainder of training camp brings. But as of right now, I think you have 4 guys that are lead pipe locks. And then I think Melton would still be, despite a poor game today, in the driver's seat as that number 5 guy. And then I think you have probably Dubose and Heath that are fighting for number 6. But those final 2 spots will be very interesting with Melton in the lead. And then if I had to pick today, my decision, who do I want as the number 6 wide receiver? I would probably go Dubose. I do think there's more upside there. And I think he can do a lot of the things that Malik Heath does already. And I think there's a higher ceiling for what Dubose can do down the road if he continues to develop. And if you're just going based off of camp and preseason so far, it's pretty easily Dubose, in my opinion, from what he's done in camp. All right. Let's see. Any other members in here that ask some questions? We'll go with Sam. Sam's in here quite often. What a difference 1 year makes. Remember that what the vibe was last year. LFG Packers. It is quite the difference in just overall vibe. And I think the cool thing was there wasn't a bad vibe last year, right? It was just like a complete unknown. And there's sometimes a beautiful feeling that comes with unknown because you're playing with a little bit of house money and you don't have super high expectations. Like last year was one of the few years in the last 30 plus years that Green Bay didn't have crazy expectations going into the year, right? And there was something almost refreshing about it, just like, all right, we don't have to necessarily have Super Bowl or bust aspirations this year. And then, of course, they go out and come a couple plays, away from being in the NFC Championship game anyway. And you certainly got that crazy postseason feel at the end of last year. But now we're right back in the thick of it, which is a great thing, by the way, of having high expectations and hoping that you can make a run at this thing towards the end of the year. But the vibes are glorious. I think what you're seeing from this team, the development that continues on offense and defense, the hope that they can figure out some of the special team stuff, Jeff Hafley coming in, Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs. I think there is a lot of hope and excitement surrounding this team. And sometimes that can lead to some heartbreak. Sometimes that can lead to players having a little bit of overconfidence. And we'll see how they deal with these expectations and how they deal with some of this success. That's going to, I think, be one of the key storylines in this season, is how this young team deals with all of that. And I do think they're probably going to get tripped up a couple times. That's okay. Those are lessons that these guys probably need to learn. And hopefully they can learn them so that when the postseason comes around, they are ready to attack it with, intensity and with vigor, and go out and perform at the level that they are capable of performing at. And maybe, like I said, make a run at this thing at the end. But so far, vibes very, very good. All right. What else we got here? Donald, defense looked faster today. How much of that is personnel versus new defensive philosophy? I don't know. I think there is a emphasis on playing fast and attacking and not playing a super passive brand of football. I would agree with you. I thought they looked a little bit faster. I think some of the personnel has to do with that. I think Javon Bullard out there, he's quick to the football. And I think, interestingly enough, right, like Edgerrin Cooper's not even out there yet, and he's a bullet. Quay Walker didn't play a ton, and he's super fast at linebacker. So I actually think that there is, Jair Alexander's not out there, and he's obviously a very fast player. I think this defense will be even faster come regular season when all their regulars are out there. But I do think they're playing faster. I think they're playing more aggressive. And I think it's part personnel. And then I think partly what they're just trying to emphasize. I don't think from a scheme standpoint, they didn't show much in today's game. It was a very vanilla game plan defensively. So I don't think you can say like, look at this scheme. But I do think just what they're asking these players to do and the emphasis that they're putting on being aggressive, I think that is a positive. And then I think you have some speed certainly on this defense already. All right. Eugene. Name one player on offense and one on defense who really helped themselves on making the 53 or the 16. Let's see. On offense, I mean, Emmanuel Wilson is such a great example, I think, on offense. I think he certainly really helped his case for making the 53. I thought both quarterbacks, Sean Clifford, 10 of 19, but as I mentioned, 3 of those were throwaways. A couple others were drops. I thought he was super efficient, 111 yards, moved the ball down the field. I thought he gave himself a much better case. Michael Pratt, 5 of 7, 46 yards. And one of those was a drop by Melton. He would have been 6 for 7 for probably 60-ish yards had Melton hung on to that one. I think that gives him a better opportunity to show like, hey, don't release me. I have a lot of upside. I think he helped himself. Dubose absolutely helped himself on offense. Joel Wilson is another player we didn't talk about. Joel Wilson, 3 catches, 30 yards, and had a couple really nice blocks as well. Do I think he's probably in the conversation for the 53? Maybe not, but he got in pretty freaking early in the game. Now, Tyler Davis did not play. Tucker Kraft did not play. Musgrave didn't play a ton. So, I mean, that's part of the reason, but he made the most of his opportunities. I think he probably helped himself on the, for the practice squad push. He's had a really nice camp, save for he's had some drops. He can just hold on to the football. He's had a propensity to get open in team activities, and the blocks, a couple of the blocks he had today were really, really good. So I think those players definitely helped themselves. Defensively, I thought Robert Rochelle, really nice play on special teams, and then had a pass breakup and a couple tackles as well. Kalen King, couple tackles, wanting, on that key third down play. I think those players, those would probably be the 2 on defense that I thought really helped themselves, although they might counter each other out because it's probably Ballantyne, King, and Rochelle. Those 3 probably fighting for 2 spots. I think King gets in. I just think there's too much upside there. I think he's shown far too much. I'd be pretty shocked if Kalen King doesn't make the team. I think that last spot might be between Rochelle and Ballantyne probably just has the advantage there based on his contract. But I do think Robert Rochelle helped himself a little bit as well. All right. Let's see what else we have. Go Pack Go. Hope Dubose makes the team. All right. Josh Jacobs must be completely healthy to be taking reps tonight. Love to see a good majority of the ones taking the reps. Yeah. I don't think even going back to family night, like it's been pretty clear from Jacobs and kind of the Packers that if this were a regular season game, he would be totally fine. They're just kind of taking it easy on him in some capacity. So making sure that he doesn't have any lingering issues and making sure that he can consistently be out there come regular season time. If there's anything at all, you don't want to work him too hard. And I think they're just being extra cautious with Jacobs. All right, Celestial Prophet, thanks for the super chat. Evan was a boss. I like Howard too. Let's talk about Evan Williams. I thought he had a really nice performance. He just continues to make plays. I want to go back and look because I know Evan Williams credited with the forced fumble. It kind of looked that way. From my biggest takeaway was that if you looked at it, the running back was just kind of carrying the ball very loose, and it almost looks like that ball was just there to be knocked out. But Evan Williams is certainly involved with it. Anthony Johnson Jr. made a big hit on it as well. But either way, big time play for Williams in the defense. And then I think he had five or six tackles as well. 6 tackles. So, we got to see a glimpse from Evan Williams of what we've been seeing in training camp every single day with his playmaking ability and his ability to be consistently around the football. He's somebody that in camp too has made a lot of plays on special teams. He gets down the field really well. I know a lot of people say 33 safety / Micah Hyde type. I think they're 2 totally different players. Just in the way they go about playing the game and inside kind of some of their like the technical things that they do. But Evan Williams, the ability to play on special teams, to play safety, to high point the ball, to get his hands on the ball and make turnovers. From that standpoint, I do think you see a little bit of Micah Hyde in his game. Donald Jackson, number 2, Kenneth Odumegwu was a feel-good story during OTAs, but how is he doing in camp? Do you believe he can be a 53-man roster player at some point in the future? Yeah, I thought there was some moment. I think he had like a 3-sack day in mini camp. But after that in camp, it's been a pretty slow start for Odumegwu. I don't think he has any chance of making the 53 this year, but I do think he'll get another opportunity to be the 17th guy in the practice squad. He'll occupy that space through the entirety of this year in all likelihood. And we'll get the opportunity to come back next year and really kind of show if he has any real opportunity to make a roster going forward. So I still think you have to remember, like, he's just barely over a year playing football, and he's trying to do it at the highest of levels in the NFL. He's a freak athlete. He looks the part, but he still has a long way to go from a developmental standpoint. Like I said, he'll get another year. We'll see what he can do coming in next year, and we'll kind of go from there. But right now, I still think he's a little ways away. Alex, good to see you. I think we can all agree preseason games are meaningless. With that being said, why are the Packers going to win the Super Bowl because of this victory? I think it just kind of continues the vibe, right? And I think that's what you want to continue to do, is just keep this thing going in the right direction. And I thought today, despite it being a completely meaningless game with a lot of players out and, you can only glean so much from it, it just keeps everything in that positive direction. And that's exactly what you want to see. This is a team that has a lot of amazing pieces on offense and defense, a ton of young players that can only hopefully get better and better and better. And you just want to keep that train rolling. And I thought this was a really great way to just kind of continue that momentum that this team has had. I know, would it have mattered if they lost by 30 in this game? Not one iota. I don't know that it would have slowed anything down, but anytime you can just keep that positive momentum going, I think it's a good thing. And I think they absolutely did that today. We talked about this a little bit. Go Pack Go all day. I still think he makes this team. I really do. Now, some of you are going to be rolling your eyes and so sick of me saying this, because if I'm counting at home, I've probably said this 35 times on episodes so far. Some of you, can you type it in right now exactly what I'm going to say verbatim? Because you probably can. If the difference comes between AJ Dillon and Emmanuel Wilson makes it this close, and it's really, really difficult to parse between the two. Emmanuel Wilson is younger. He has more years of team control, and he has, I think, a little bit maybe more upside down the road, and he's cheaper. So younger, cheaper, more years of team control, and maybe more long-term upside. If it's close, if it's even remotely close, and you have to make that decision, I think it goes to Wilson. Now, if you're Emmanuel Wilson, you have to be the one that makes that close. And if you're AJ Dillon, you got to be the one that makes it so that it's not close. But I do think that even if it's close, the thing that swings in Dillon's favor is pass protection. And I think it's the ability to know the offense and just be sort of a little bit more of a known commodity. Now, sometimes that known commodity hasn't been super great in running between the tackles. And we saw it to some extent in a 4-carry, 2-yard performance today. There just sometimes lacks a little bit of dynamic playmaking ability. I think Dillon has looked great in camp. As I started off by saying today, I would not judge him too harshly on the 4 opportunities he had today, which it seemed like defenders were all over him almost immediately on every single one of those runs. So I would pause a little bit in gleaning too much into that, because I do think he's had a great camp so far, a great camp. And again, that pass pro that he had against Rashawn Gary this week in practice is just, those things are invaluable in those sort of situations. So I do think if I were betting today that Dillon still makes the team, but again, if it's close and they have to make those difficult decisions, Wilson certainly does have some things going in his favor. Evan Williams might be that dude. Andy thought it was a reach to trade up for him in the 4th, but boy, I want to be proven wrong. Yeah, I think if I were to probably say, I think he's been the player that has impressed me the most from this rookie class so far, which is saying something, because Bullard's been pretty freaking good as well. Unfortunately, a lot of the other guys are injured. 4 of their top 5 draft picks that they took in the top 100 are all injured right now. Jordan Morgan, Edgerrin Cooper, Tyron Hopper, and now Lloyd. So hopefully those guys can come back sooner rather than later, but they've been a little bit snake bit in this draft class so far, except for the DBs. Javon Bullard, Kalen King, and Evan Williams have been more than advertised. Williams absolutely looks the part. Some of the plays, guys, that he has made in practice, high pointing the ball, going up and getting it and picking it off. He's got at least 4 interceptions in practices so far. Starts preseason with a forced fumble. He has been a turnover machine. Listen, defense is about making big plays. You have to come up with the football. You have to be able to come up with those game-changing moments. And I think a lot of times in this Joe Barry system, partially because of the way that they played, but also because they were kind of lacking playmakers at times. It was really a struggle to come up with some of those big plays. But I think the integration, one, of Jeff Hafley's defense, but two, of guys like Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, hopefully Edgerrin Cooper, Tyron Hopper, and some of these other guys, I think can really make a big time influence on this defense and hopefully taking the ball away as well, because that is more often than not what really makes you a great defense, is that ability to make big plays and take the ball away. And Evan Williams has been unreal at doing that so far. All right, John, any reason why LVN was playing so late into the game? Odd to see the 13th overall pick last year playing so late into a preseason game. I think one of the big things for LVN is he is still a young, very much developmental player. And I think getting him these reps is actually somewhat important. I think a couple other things that go into this is they probably feel a little bit more comfortable playing him, knowing that they do have Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Enagbare, and Preston Smith. If some, sort of injury were to happen, I think they have the depth there. Not that you're expecting it or wanting it. If they thought there was going to be an injury, they clearly wouldn't have him playing, but I think it gives them a little bit more confidence and maybe having him play a little bit more. And then I think the other thing is that you knew Gary wasn't going to play much. You knew Smith wasn't going to play much. Enagbare is just coming back from injury. And then, you kind of are a little bit banged up with Deslin Alexander being out, with Keyshawn Banks being out. So they probably wanted to maybe utilize that, I think him and maybe like Brenton Cox a little bit more in this game. So I didn't have an issue with it. I know there's always risk of potential injury in those sort of situations, but I was totally fine with it. And I understood for a developmental player like that, wanting to maybe get him a little bit more playing time. Regardless of the Dylan Wilson debate, do you believe the Packers will keep more than 2 running backs, especially? Yeah, they'll absolutely keep 3. I'd be shocked if they don't keep 3. I think there's a chance they can keep 4, but I think they'll absolutely keep 3. All right. Is King going to make the 53 from Peak Productions? Yeah, I think so. I just talked about this a little bit ago, but I'd be pretty surprised at this point. I think there's too much upside there. And we know Goody likes to keep his draft picks. So a little bit more with 7th round picks. We saw last year he released Dubose and Lou Nichols, who had a touchdown in the game for the Eagles the other day, by the way. So did Kevin King, for not a touchdown, but a big interception for Kevin King playing for the Atlanta Falcons. Look at that. But overall, I do think he has too much upside to probably release at this point. It's always interesting, those conversations at the back end of the roster of like, do you want to keep the guy that maybe is more special teams prowess and can help you more right now, or the guy that has more upside long-term? And I think the thing that Kalen King is going for him is, I think if you're the GM in the front office, you're going to say, we can't cut this guy. He has too much long-term upside. And I think if you're from a coach's standpoint, you're like, well, we also think he's doing really well in camp and covering, and we think he might be able to help out right now, even on special teams as well. So we're okay with it. It's sometimes if it's one or the other, or like the guy is just not right, like Travis Glover, right? Travis Glover is probably going to be part of that conversation, where Travis Glover is probably, and Michael Pratt's another. Those two are probably not going to be able to give you anything that is going to help your 2024 Green Bay Packers, right? Just probably not. Maybe I could be wrong. I've certainly been wrong before. It won't be the first time. It won't be the last. But if we're being realistic, Michael Pratt and Travis Glover probably are not going to help the 2024 Packers win any games. Or they probably will not see the field, all things going according to plan, the entire year. Probably not even on special teams or anything, right? So those are more where you get into the debates of, do we want to redshirt Michael Pratt and Travis Glover and keep them on the 53 because we think they have the long-term upside? Or would we rather keep a 4th running back in Emmanuel Wilson? Would we rather keep a 7th wide receiver in Malik Heath or Grant Dubose? Would we rather keep a 10th offensive lineman that maybe gives us a little bit more ability to play now if we would need it through the course of the year? Do we want to keep a Brenton Cox as a 5th defensive end? Do we want to keep a Jonathan Ford as a 6th defensive tackle? Do we want to keep a Christian Welch as a 6th linebacker who can help us on special teams every single week? A Zane Anderson at safety who can help us at special teams every single week? Those are going to be Robert Rochelle as a 6th or 7th corner who can help us on special teams every single week. Those are always the constant debates that you're going to have to get into between front office and head coach, where Matt LaFleur and the coaching staff is going to be like, I think Pratt is probably going to be a little bit more of like, yes, we're obviously willing to give him a little bit more time because he does have the upside as a quarterback and you can never have enough of those. But like a Travis Glover is probably going to be more of a conversation of that guy cannot help us right now. Robert Rochelle, Zane Anderson, Christian Welch, all the guys we just mentioned probably can. So do you want the guy that, we can also look at Rochelle and Anderson and Welch and say they have probably no long-term upside. None of those guys are probably turning into any starters down the road at any point in their career. Travis Glover might, if you give him the leeway and the runway to really develop into the player. He could maybe develop into a starter, but can't help you in 24. The other guys can help you in 24, probably never develop into starters. Weigh it out. Which one do you want? And I think those are always where the interesting discussions come in. But with a Kalen King, I think long-term upside to develop into a starter and probably somebody who can give you the depth to help you right now on teams and as a corner. And I think that gives him a lot better opportunity to make the team right now. All right. Thoughts on the secondary play as a whole tonight? I thought, first of all, Derek, they were very vanilla. A lot more off coverage than I think we're going to see in the regular season, which is understandable because you're not playing with Ja and Eric Stokes the majority of the time, right? Like you're playing and Carrington Valentine and McKinney barely played. You're playing more with, guys that don't have that coverage ability. So you probably are going to be a little less aggressive. I'll put it that way. But overall, I thought they rallied and tackled well. I think probably my favorite play was Eric Stokes coming up and making a play in the run game right at her behind the line of scrimmage. I tweeted this out. It's something that we have seen in camp, these corners be a lot more aggressive and coming up to make the plays in the run game. But it's one thing to do it in camp where it's two-hand touch and be like, yeah, I'll come up and make the play. All I have to do is tag him down. I don't have to subject myself to a big hit from a running back or something. And it's another to actually do it in a game when live tackling is there. I thought Stokes came up, made the play in the backfield. That's exactly what I'm looking for out of these corners is guys that can come up and make those plays. And I thought Stokes did a really nice job of it. Jean-Marc Brown, thank you so much for coming, a brand new YouTube member. Appreciate that a ton. I know going into the chat today, we were this close to 400 members. So again, definitely check those out. Members Q&A is coming. You get first access to videos when they're posted. There's already a video out there for Monday that from Ross Uglum that if you're a member, you get access to it right now. As soon as the video is posted, you get access to it right away. You don't have to wait till the morning release. And like I said, you also get access to extra videos every single week as well. Wally Lama, try to stash Emmanuel Wilson on the practice squad. Don't need a seventh corner, in my opinion, since Nixon can flex if needed, and Bullard might play slot. Yeah, I don't think they're going to keep a seventh corner. I think that's probably overkill. That would be a tough sell at this point, especially for all the reasons that you just mentioned. But keeping a fourth running back is still really, really difficult. This is going to be a team that's going to release players that are going to be on some teams 53, whether it's immediate claim or whether they get called up from the practice squad later, or whether Green Bay calls them up from the practice squad later. This is a very competitive roster, in my opinion. When we can go, let's just count it. Let's have fun here. Guys who I think can legitimately make a 53-man roster. We've got Love, Clifford, Pratt. That's 3. Jacobs, Dillon, Lloyd, Wilson. I think that's 7. Musgrave 8, Kraft 9, Sims 10, Davis 11. I'm even putting maybe Joel Wilson on there as 12? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Tom 13, Telford 14, Glover 15, Sean Ryan 16, Morgan 17, Myers 18, Monk 19. I'll say Newman 20, but that's a iffy one. Jenkins 21, Walker 22, Dillard 23, Caleb Jones 24. Donovan Jennings is a maybe. Luke Tenuta is a maybe, but we'll just say 24. And if you want to put one of those guys in front of Newman, that's fine. But maybe 24, 25 at that point. Reed 26, Dobbs 27, Watson 28, Wicks 29, Heath 30, Melton 31, Dubose 32. Even if you wanted to throw Toure on there 33, I'd be fine with that. So that's 33 on offense. Gary 34 and Igbari 35. I'll leave Keyshawn Banks out, but I think he actually could be close. Slayton 36, Brooks 37, Jonathan Ford 38, Clark 39, Wyatt 40, Wooden 41, Preston 42, LVN 43, Brenton Cox 44, Quay 45, Hopper 46, Wilson 47, Welch 48, Mosby 49, Edrin Cooper 50, McDuffie 51, Stokes 52, Valentine 53, Zane Anderson, 54, Oladapo, 55, Anthony Johnson, 56, McKinney, 57, Bullard, 58, Evan Williams, 59, Rochelle, 60, Jair, 61, Keyshawn, 62, Ballantyne, 63, Kalen King, 64, Waylon, 65. We'll say one of the long snappers, 66, and we'll say one of the kickers is good enough, 67. That's 67 guys. Now, give or take 2 or 3 if you want, that's fine. But like, there's probably somewhere between 65 and 70 guys that I think legitimately can make 53-man rosters on this team. Like, that is a massively competitive situation. And what you are hoping for as Packer fans is as few of those guys get claimed as possible at the end. And usually there's only maybe 16 claims in the entire NFL after cutdown days. Let's even say Green Bay's on the higher end and they're one of those teams that get 3 guys claimed. I mean, man, even if you have, we just said maybe 65, 67 guys that are capable of making a 53. Let's say that takes it down to 62 to 64. You still have a full 53 and then 9 to 11 guys on your practice squad that you feel comfortable with could be on your 53 if you really needed it to be. It's a pretty big embarrassment of riches right now for Green Bay. It's really, really fun to see the depth that Brian Gutekunst has created on this roster and the competition. All right, Alex, sorry this has already come up, but have we heard how serious we think Lloyd's hamstring is? I haven't seen anything post the game. I'm sure we probably haven't gotten any update on it yet, but if anyone has seen anything and wants to put it in chat, feel free. Jew Mosk, Jordan Love, big Jordan Love guy. Jew Mosk, I told you, Justice, what did I tell you? I told you the number one thing from training camp is Jordan Love's deep ball. I said there's nothing that's been more important so far, and chef kiss, perfect. Love to Wicks. What more could you possibly want? Go follow Justice at JUMOSQ. He's going to be joining us every single week during the season to break down the Packers again, just like he did last year. Always a super fun guest to talk to. Justice, hope you are doing well. Hope you're feeling better after your keg stand flu. Hope that's doing a little bit better, my friend. Kevin, I think there's about 60 to 65 players. Hey, we just talked about that, Kevin. We're right on the same page there. I'm just going to say it for time for Dylan to go and Wilson to get his shot. Yeah, we talked about this one. I understand it completely. All I'll say one more time is Dylan's had a great camp, and I wouldn't judge him based on those 4 carries where there were guys swarming him the entire time, almost as soon as he got the ball. Matthew, hi, Andy. First time joining a live show. Just wanted to say I watch every day. Love your very realistic take on all things Packers. Always fun and informative. Thank you for all your great work. Go Pack Go. Matthew, appreciate that a ton. Glad you were able to get to a live chat. We'll certainly be doing a lot more of them during the course of the season, so hopefully you can join more, but really appreciate all the kind words. Fred joined late. If you haven't touched on it yet, how did the second and third string line look? We did touch on that. I won't go into too much in depth. You can rewatch once we're done here to go into it in a little bit more detail. But I thought overall, from a run blocking standpoint, really good day. Want to watch the all 22 to get a little bit more of a better feel from it overall. I thought and I think they only gave up again 1 sack, which I think if I remember was of the 0-yard variety on a scramble. So I thought overall pretty good, but again, we didn't see a Myles Garrett. We didn't see a Zadarius Smith. This Browns defense was missing a lot of guys too, but overall, I would say a passing grade from this backup offensive line. All right, friends, I'm probably going to get out of here pretty quick. Any final thoughts? Any final questions? Corey, the safeties were awesome to watch tackle. I agree. I think you're going to really, really enjoy watching this team. Anthony Johnson Jr. did miss one late, but he also had one of my favorite plays of the game where he came up and crashed an offensive tackle. It was either a tackle or a pulling guard and just blew him up, and it immediately stopped the run in its tracks. It was such an amazing play by AJJ. Like I said, he did have a missed tackle later, but overall, these safeties, I said it earlier this week, I said it earlier in the offseason, I think the glow up from last year's safety group to this year's safety group has the ability to be maybe one of the biggest upgrades in any position group in the entire NFL. I think it can be that significant. I really do. You're going to love watching Xavier McKinney play. Absolutely love it. What are your thoughts on the dynamic kick returns? I'm going to be honest. I think I'm ready to just say, you know what? Let's just start at the 25. I am willing to give it a bit more time, especially because we're in preseason and I think teams are being extra vanilla with the kickoff rules in preseason. I don't know that I need it. In fact, I don't think that I do. If you're basically getting rid of the onside kick until the 4th quarter anyway, and they could still do it at that point, I think I'd rather just see more offensive and defensive football. I think that is the more enjoyable. Like if you're asking me, what do I enjoy more? Would I rather have an extra, like, just offensive play and defensive play, or an extra special teams? Give me the offense or defensive play. I would rather more games get decided based off of that, on what they can do on offense and defense, than some rather gimmicky kick return. So I'm not there yet. I'm not saying I completely hate it. I'm willing to give it a hot second. I really am. I'm willing to give it into the season, but I'm kind of just more of like, let's just start at the 25. What are we doing? Do we really need a kickoff? Because I don't think we do. Derek, I know Dylan has issues and is in moments of greatness, but the dude is such a locker room guy. Hard to move on from what he brings to the table as a whole. Yeah, I totally get it. He's been the consummate professional. He's been a really good, as you mentioned, locker room guy. And again, he's a phenomenal blitz pickup guy as well, and does really well in pass protection. So I still think he's going to make the team, but you're waiting for that moment where you just like, you can see the total package from Dylan, where he's getting those runs and he's constantly getting big yardage out of it. There's a piece of me that wishes he could have gotten more playing time, just because I think if he gets a couple of those runs where Emmanuel Wilson, was able to do well on, I think Dylan would have done really well on them as well. I think maybe it feels a little bit different, but unfortunately it didn't go that way. And Dylan kind of got the short end of the stick when it came to, what runs he got, and just constantly having Browns swarming him immediately when he got the ball. Do you think there's any chance Van Ness takes a big enough jump to overtake Preston? My biggest answer to this, Jacob, is I don't think it matters. And what I mean by that is, I think you're going to see Gary, LVN, and Preston all play a ton no matter what. And Igbari is going to play a good chunk. I think you're going to rotate those guys pretty liberally. Gary going to get the most of the playing time, but he's also a guy that, you kind of want to see, get some plays off as well, because he usually is somebody that maybe can get worn down a little bit more. So I think those guys are going to rotate a ton. And I don't, quite frankly, think it matters who's the starter, who's not the starter. Just let those guys rotate, keep them fresh, and let them keep getting after the quarterback. All right. All right, friends. I think that's going to do it for me right now. These are always fun. I will do one more for Kevin. Aaron Jones is a locker room guy, but he got cut about salary and performance and availability. Yes, I think that's the name of the game ultimately. A lot of these very popular locker room guys, Jordy Nelson, Aaron Jones, we can go on and on. They end up with other teams. So it definitely happens. But, I think keeping good locker room guys is also an important thing. So it definitely plays a part as well. All right, guys, that does it for me. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you guys a ton. Thank you to all for the new memberships and the super chats. You're the absolute best. I will be back, obviously, tomorrow. It should be actually posted later tonight for the actual post-game show, and kind of going through after I rewatch everything and kind of my key takeaways from the game. If you're a member, it certainly will be up sooner rather than later. And then, we'll be back next week with a live members Q&A, happy hour next Friday, and we'll do another post-game chat after next week's game as well. Should be another fun week. Can't wait for it. See you all soon. Go Pack Go. Wait, I have to do it right. Until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.